Hey, help support the show by becoming a member on Patreon or YouTube. You'll get 4 bonus videos a month, plus ad-free versions of every Junkyard pod, and a special shout out at the beginning of each video. This is the best way to help me as a creator, and so thank you and go Cavs. I'm not sure if, less than 24 hours is enough to overcome what just happened last night, but figured we got to talk about it. And right off the bat, let me just say, for any Cavs fans or Pacers fans who are watching, let me get this out the way. The title is a little bit of clickbait. I clickbaited you just a little bit because this video, it's not going to go in the direction that some people might think it is. All right. But I will start off by admitting the obvious. I was wrong when I picked the Cavs to win in 5. That much is clear. That is off the table now. I still stand by that prediction because, to be fair, the Cavs, listen, they were the far better team throughout the regular season. It was never disrespect to the Indiana Pacers. I still think a healthy Cavs squad wins this series in 5 or 6 at the most, but that's not what happened. We didn't get a healthy Cavs squad. That's life in the NBA. This isn't meant to take anything away from the Pacers. If you want to say it's an excuse, whatever, you play who's in front of you. All right. That's life in the NBA playoffs. So I understand why Pacers fans, they're getting their victory laps in the YouTube comments. And I get it. That's part of the game. I'm not here to tell you how to be a fan. I can certainly take a joke. It's not that deep, but clearly you could see why I thought this series would go differently and where all my predictions have kind of become void because the team that I thought was going to play simply hasn't played. So I've said all series, even as far back as March, that the Pacers are a team that could surprise the Cavs. I just didn't think the injury bug would bite us as hard as it did. And so, again, if that's an excuse, then fine, I'll own it. But for this video, I want to talk about those injuries and if there's any potential for those players to return and just how screwed are the Cavs right now? Or could they actually fight back and make this a series? I don't know. So, first things first, I'm not a medical professional. I think that's obvious. I'm not Darius Garland. I'm not Evan Mobley or DeAndre Hunter. I can't tell you the details of their injury or what they're feeling, and neither can any of you. So, that's my first point that I want to start off with because there's so much speculation out there right now. Everybody has an opinion on this, and none of us can really say for certain what those guys are feeling or if they can play or not. So, if you're going to speculate, like I'm going to throughout this video, let's start by at least acknowledging that we're not speaking the gospel here. All right. We're all just making assumptions. And of course, we all know what they say about assumptions. So try not to be an asshole about it. Right. Like I'm seeing these takes at the Cavs. Oh, they're so soft or so and so should just be playing through their injury. And I, I just think back to last year when all of those same people were saying the same thing about Jarrett Allen for not playing in the playoffs. When eventually it turned out that, oh my God, he had a broken rib. He literally had a piece of bone floating around in his body. So he just actually couldn't play through it. And so, listen, I don't suspect that any of the current Cavalier injuries are anywhere near that bad, but it's just a reminder that generally in life, I think it's good to be charitable to other people, to not assume the worst in everybody, to give them the benefit of the doubt. You don't know what these injuries are. If Evan Mobley can't put weight on his ankle, then he can't play in a playoff game. He's not going to be very effective, is he? You can't compare the Mobley sprained ankle to Jalen Brunson like I've seen some people doing because Brunson sprained his ankle in early March. That was nearly 2 months ago, right? And he missed multiple weeks before coming back, and then he's been able to play through it ever since. He's re-aggravated it, and yes, give Brunson all the credit in the world for being tough as hell, but that's very different from Evan Mobley spraining his ankle 48 hours before game 2 starts. And the same goes for DeAndre Hunter. He dislocated his thumb at the end of game 1. That's different from Stephen Curry, who I'm seeing people mention because he is dealing with a thumb injury on his shooting hand. But that injury, he suffered it way back in January, and he's re-aggravated it back in March, and he's been hitting the hand a bunch of times, and it's clearly still swollen. But the point is, these are different situations. I understand that we are all frustrated as hell because the Cavs season looks like it's hanging in the balance. Well, it is hanging in the balance. It looks like it might end with multiple guys out with key injuries, and that's frustrating. But I don't see the point in venting those frustrations by making bad comparisons to other teams or other players when it doesn't match what's happening in Cleveland, right? That's my point here. Even Darius Garland, right? Like I know how ridiculous it sounds to miss multiple games with a sprained toe. I know that's the most ludicrous sounding injury you could imagine, but seriously, I would suggest you try running or changing speeds and directions. Just stand up and do that right now without putting any weight on your big toe. Just notice how much weight you place on your big toe when you do that, because guess what? It's impossible. It's just, I fully believe that if this was simply a pain tolerance thing, then Darius Garland, he needs to suck it up and give it a go on Friday, right? But if it was strictly a pain tolerance thing, I think he probably would have already been back by now. The reality is this injury limits your mobility. At a certain point, these injuries, they go from just being painful to actually limiting what you can do on the court. And so if Darius Garland can't change directions without limping, then he's not going to be very effective as a basketball player. And so again, I understand that we're all pissed off with how the season is unfolding, and it's really frustrating to watch the Cavs lose a game by 1 point where Darius and Evan and DeAndre Hunter are on the bench laughing. I get it. It's frustrating, but the reality is if they can't play, then they can't play. And I'm not here to police the fan base or tell you not to feel upset. It's completely valid to feel annoyed. I'm just saying, let's be fair about the injury stuff, because no one is happy about missing these games. Darius Garland last year rushed back from a broken jaw. And so I just have no reason to believe that he is specifically choosing to sit out of these games because he doesn't want to play. Like I said earlier, I just believe in being charitable, giving people the benefit of the doubt, and not making assumptions when you could potentially make yourself look like a jerk. So again, with all that said, I still think Darius Garland and DeAndre Hunter, they got to at least give it a go on Friday. You have to try. That we'll wait on Mobley's status because he seems the worst of the bunch. The sprained ankle is harder to play through than a toe injury or a thumb injury, at least in my opinion. Again, I'm not a medical professional, but that's my final point on the injury stuff. The other thing that I want to say is very quickly, the load management during the regular season. I've seen some takes about that, and people are, Kenny Atkinson, what a mistake or whatever. He didn't play his guys enough minutes. That's not the problem here. All right, the Cavs, they were able to rest guys and keep minutes down because they won 64 games in the regular season, and their star players didn't even have to play in the fourth quarter for a lot of those games. It's not like they were intentionally resting guys in games that like were actually competitive or anything like that. Like, no, they earned that rest because they were just destroying teams all year long. So you do that load management because the strategy there is less minutes means fewer opportunities for an injury to happen. It's not Load management is not this magic protection that you think that you're putting over your players where it's going to shield them from getting hurt because, oh well, they didn't play that much in the regular season, so there's no way they get hurt in the playoffs. That's not how it works. The entire idea is to keep them healthy before you get to the playoffs. That's the point of load management. And the Cavaliers, they succeeded at that. They were pretty much, for the most part, healthy entering the playoffs. Unfortunately, it just didn't matter because, again, load management, keeping minutes down, injuries are unpredictable. They're unavoidable. Load management or, the players not being conditioned for the playoffs, which I've seen people say, that's not the reason DeAndre Hunter fell on his thumb and dislocated it. That's not the reason Evan Mobley landed on Miles Turner and twisted his ankle. Those are freak accidents that it's the reason you rest during the regular season because you want to avoid those freak accidents as much as possible. Unfortunately, when the playoffs start, it's out of your control at that point. So I think it's just dumb to hyper focus on the load management. That's not what happened. And that's the last thing I have to say for that. That my injury rant's out of the way. Now let's finish by talking about what comes next in this playoff series. What comes next? The odds right now, completely against the Cavs here. History is not very kind to teams that fall down 0-2. I don't know if they can complete a comeback. I don't know if they can win this series. Even if all three of those guys were able to return, it's going to be very difficult. All I know is that winning game 3 is where it has to start, right? The Cavs have to win game 3. I'm gonna hold off on any other predictions or takes or here's how they do it, here's how they complete the comeback. I'm not gonna do any of that. All I know is that momentum in basketball and sports can shift so quickly in the playoffs. And if the Cavs win game 3, all of a sudden it's 2-1 with a chance to tie it up and head back to Cleveland. So things could change quickly, but there's also a chance that they lose game 3. And, this incredible season that we've all enjoyed is just one game away from ending. So I'm going to hold off on any takes from here because all I know is that they have to win game 3 and we'll talk from there. And they've shown that they can win these games, right? I know this is copium, but the Cavs, they've literally won every category of this series besides the 3-point battle. They've out-rebounded Indiana. They've scored more points in the paint. They've generated more turnovers. They did a really good job on Tyrese Halliburton all the way up until he hit the game-winning shot last game. So the only thing the Cavs aren't doing right now is shooting the three-pointer well. and, late game execution in game 2. They've shot below 30% from deep in both games. If that continues, yeah, they're not going to win this series. If they can't inbound the ball at the end of games, they're not going to win these series. But Jarrett Allen said at the end of game 2 that essentially, I'm just, paraphrasing, that Cleveland feels they figured out the winning formula against Indiana. And I think that's true. I would agree with that assessment. I know if any Pacers fans are watching, they might say that's ludicrous, whatever. They were winning game 2 for 47 minutes, right? They clearly understand that they can dominate key areas of the game and maintain a lead for 47 minutes. It's all about holding on at the end, right? And so it's the final minute that cost them. It's the 3-point variance that has bit them in both games. They can dominate the other 3 key areas of the game. If the 3-point variance gets back in order and they continue to win those other areas of the game and they don't have an inexplicable collapse at the end, all of a sudden this series could be very interesting. So again, that's the copium take. The Cavs, they've been in position to win both games so far. The reality is that's all meant nothing because you're still down 0-2 and you still have 3 guys who are going to be questionable for Friday, along with Donovan Mitchell, who's dealing with a calf strain as well. So there's a lot of things working against you, but I don't think there's any reason to think that the Cavs are fighting a totally hopeless battle right now. There's no reason to roll over and accept defeat. Game 3, it's a must win. I think it's a winnable game. I can't wait to see how the Cavs respond because of that. I think how they look in game 3 is going to tell us a lot more about this team's character than anything we've seen so far from this core. So it's going to be the most important game of this era. And I can't wait to see it. I'm nervous. I'm excited, but hopefully they come out and they surprise us. So that's all I have for today. Thank you all for watching. Again, I'm not looking to be preachy about the injury stuff. I just think the takes, they've gone a little off the rails, and I wanted to offer a different perspective on that because I think sometimes all this frustration that we're feeling leads us to saying some, delusional or unfair, making unfair assessments on things that we don't really know. So that's all I was trying to do there. I appreciate everyone who tunes in, even the Pacers fans who are getting their jabs in the comments. It's all part of the fun. I get it. And hopefully we'll be able to give you some of a taste of your own medicine in game 3. So with all that being said, thanks for watching, everybody, and go Cavs.